Greetings to all of you. Welcome to ePathshala Architecture Project, a lecture series for MArch students. In this series, this lecture is about services in high-rise buildings and the module is about elevators and escalators, part 1. Elevators and escalators for high-rise buildings is a very interesting subject to discuss and understand. And in this module, we will be principally focusing on the elevator part of it. And we will notice that high-rise buildings exist by the grace of elevators, and because the tower's elevator core is its main artery and spine. As you would notice in this schematic sketch, what goes through into the elevator system. This is an example, and where it shows that express that goes up to the top of the building here, and then you will also see that express to the sky lobbies here indicated by 2, and these are the sky lobbies indicated by number 4. So, there are elevators that go up to the top and there are elevators that go up to sky lobbies, and then there are local services here which are present at the concourse at the base level. Then there are mechanical floors in between where things of mechanical services are also present, and these are floor steps indicated here, and between floors there are escalators indicated by these diagonal red line. So, this is a schematic sketch of what goes through in a high-rise building with respect to elevators and escalators. Now, let us try to understand what is a high-rise building. Different people have tried to define what a high-rise building is, but what is popularly accepted is the one that is given by Council on Tall Buildings and Urban Habitat. According to them, a building is that exhibits some element of tallness in one or more of the following categories. The categories are height relative to context, proportion, tall building technologies. We will take a look at each one of them. Height relative to context, for example, Chicago or Hong Kong versus any provincial city, can notice that a city like Chicago has got a lot of high-rise buildings and the height is very relative, and whereas in a conventional city the same building would stand out compared to its neighborhood buildings. So, that is height relative to context. In terms of proportion, if a building is slender enough to give the appearance of a tall building, especially against low urban background, vis-a-vis big large footprint building that are quite tall, but their size or floor area rules them out as being classed as a tall building. You may notice here that it does not give that impression of being tall compared to this building here. So, that is what is meant here by proportion. Tall building technologies, which means technologies which may be attributed as being product of tall. Say for example, vertical transportation technologies which are very specific to tall buildings, or structural wind bracing which are unique developments that have happened because of the tall buildings. Number of floors, a building of perhaps 14 or more stories or more than 50 meters in height is again considered as a tall building. Depending on building usage, building versus a telecommunication tower. Sometimes telecommunication towers are considered as tall structures, whereas in some studies only buildings with occupancies are considered as tall structures. A tall building can be classed as such and is eligible for the tallest list if at least 50% of its height is occupied by usable floor area. So, here we have two examples here, Oriental Pearl TV Tower Shanghai, which has less than 50% occupancy, whereas Jinmao building in Shanghai has more than 50% usable floor area. Single function and mixed use buildings. A single function tall building where greater than 85% of its total floor area is dedicated to a single usage, whereas in a mixed use tall building it contains two or more functions where each of the functions occupies a significant portion of the total tall space. Here we have two examples for us: John Hancock Center, Chicago and Willis Tower, Chicago. In the first example, it is evident that a great proportion is going for residential and an equal proportion for office, and then we have for parking and retail, whereas in the second category is predominantly for office purpose. Some points to ponder. What do terms like super tall or mega tall actually mean? How is a building's height measured? These are questions for you as food for thought. Guidelines. These are generic questions which we must consider while designing for tall buildings. How much weight must it lift, as in the vertical transportation system? How fast would it lift it? How many landings will be served? How large does the cab need to be? How big are the things going on the elevator? Are automatic doors or gates required? We need to ask these questions to ourselves as designers. Then there are other questions. What size is the hoistway? What is the wall construction and how deep is the pit? How high is the overhead? What kind of power is available? Is there a machine room available or is it without one? Is an overhead machine space available? How many car openings are required to suit the floor plan? Planning aspect. Is underground drilling a problem? Site constraint. Coming to elevator planning for high-rise buildings, these are certain things which are very, very important. Building access. What kind of access are we providing to the building and from where are we reaching to the elevator system? Internal transportation system as the building's main artery. Elevator core as building's support structure. This is very important because elevator core takes a significant part of the floor space and that goes along all the floors of the tall building. Traffic flow studies are very, very important because depending on the usage of the building and variability of the occupancy, traffic flow will change. Specification for internal transportation is very important. There may be express elevators and there may be regular elevators. So accordingly and depending on various usages, the specifications will vary. Capacity required for stairs, elevators and shaft are important and that will depend on the floor usage, traffic flow pattern and so on. Capacity and waiting time analysis. For either low rise or high rise building, these same initial estimate parameters are important. Population, the number of employees or residents of the building. Occupancy, presence or simultaneousness, that is what we mean by occupancy. What is the peak demand? Indicative traffic flow peak, and therefore based on these three factors the required capacity is arrived by the product of population, occupancy and peak demand expressed as a percentage of occupancy per 5 minutes. Now, this table indicates the traffic flow intensity parameters depending on the function. For example, if we take office space for population 1 in workplace per 18 to 25 meters square. Now occupancy 60 to 85% enter in the morning up peak. Peak demand, the up peak is generally always indicative unless the restaurant is not located on the ground floor. Similarly, hotel and residences and educational indicators are given here. Let us go through one by one. For example, if you take the function of office space, the population indicated here is 1 per workplace per 18 to 25 meters square. The occupancy is 60 to 85% enter in the morning up peak. The peak demand states the up peak is generally always indicative 12.5 to 18% per 5 minutes unless the restaurant is not located on the ground floor. Coming to the function of hotel, 1.2 to 1.5% per room of population, the occupancy 90% room occupancy, peak demand. The morning down peak is determinant, descending and ascending breakfast traffic plus downward checkout traffic together 14 to 18% per 5 minutes. Considering residential based on Dutch standard NEN 5080 comparable with CIBSE, dependent on the number of rooms per apartment, 1.25 persons in a 1 or 2 room apartment, 2 persons in a 3 room apartment, 2.75 persons in a 4 room apartment, 3.5 persons in a 5 or more room apartment. 40 to 60% leave in the morning down peak. The down peak is indicative 3 to 6% per 5 minutes. Lastly, educational spaces, 1 person per 4 to 7 meters square. 45 to 75% arrive during the first or second lesson period. The up peak and or the peak during lesson changeovers are indicative, that is 15 to 25% per 5 minutes. A project specific estimate on the project's individual characteristic, condition and ambition. And this is very, very important because tall buildings are unique in their character. Building examination criteria is one of the vital aspects of design. We need to understand what is the height of the building, number of stories and what is the height of individual stories. Distribution of population throughout the building, starting from the base till the top. Main entrance level, at what level does the main entrance take place? Is it at the ground level or is it at a higher level or somewhere else? Distribution of population over elevator groups, depending on the usage of the entire building. Stair usage, so we should have a certain idea of the usage of stair versus elevators. That will help us in defining the lift capacity and various other factors. Coming to primary considerations, we need to look at the number of elevators per group. So, grouping of elevators is very important and we need to know how many of them have to be grouped together and how do we space them across the tall building. Nominal elevator load capacity based on car floor area. Realistic car occupancy, we have standardized car capacity and we have to be very realistic in terms of occupancy. Nominal elevator speed, we need to take into account the travel time depending on the occupancy, that depending on the number of floors it is going to travel, depending on peak demand and various such factors. Secondary considerations, elevator acceleration. Acceleration, how does it pick up the speed, how long does it take? The door times, opening and closing, the type of door, the dimension, etc. Entry and exit times depending on the type of user, free passageway and car occupancy. Specification for adequate traffic flow management. Primary consideration, sufficient peak demand capacity. Secondary considerations, acceptable waiting times. Tertiary considerations, elevator speeds within acceptable time. Supplementary considerations: robustness, robustness as in for failure, robustness, deviation from norm, durability with respect to design. Requirements to include separate goods elevators and or firefighting elevators in towers. So, there will be occupants or populations elevators, and there will be service elevators, and there will be firefighting elevators, and as designers we need to take into considerations where do we need to place and how many of them to be placed. Some common mistakes we can commit or we tend to commit when we are designing elevators: when confronted with unfavorable outcomes, that is traffic flow or elevator capacity mismatches, instead of adjusting the basic elevator concept, the basic assumptions are tweaked to force a match, and then when the work is executed, the end users are in trouble. Looking at correct and realistic approach, adjust the building's properties. Once we know the usages, we need to handle the design appropriately. Adjust the elevator system's primary parameters. We have seen what the primary parameters are. Acceptable performance. Ultimate assessment criterion is waiting time and or the destination time. Waiting time as in the number of seconds or minutes that the occupants have to wait on the lobbies or the corridors. Destination time, how long does it take for the user to reach from the assigned floor to the destination floor. There are no hard and fast standards for designing elevators for high-rise buildings, and since tall buildings are ambitious projects, usually design varies project by project basis. Simulation studies are done for arriving at design solutions. Here is a screenshot of elevator simulation example. This table shows the function and indicates of acceptable waiting times for various building functions. For example, for office space, less than or equal to 25 seconds is considered excellent. When it is around 30, it is considered good, and 35 it is moderate. For healthcare, if you look at it, it is excellent is considered for less than or equal to 30, whereas moderate is less than or equal to 50 seconds. Similarly, for hotel and residential is also given for the benefit of understanding. Calculation versus simulation. So, a doubt may arise in the mind whether we have to go for calculation or should we depend on simulation studies. Both methods are good. Calculation takes a lot of time, and usually for simplified designs calculation methods are used, whereas when it comes to high-rise buildings, usually the designs are complicated, the assumptions are too many, the factors are too many, and therefore we need to rely on simulation. An absolute requirement for high-rise traffic flow analysis: round trip calculations are important. Theoretical total cycle time for a single elevator during up peak demand can be calculated, but when there are too many lifts to be considered, simulation would be a better approach. Limitations of round trip time calculations: can only be used for simple up peak demand, can only be used where there is one main entrance level, can only be used where there is no disruptive inter-floor traffic flow, can only be used where all elevators in a group are identical, whereas most of the cases in high-rise buildings do not fit into this category. Issues of interval: the interval is often an unreliable indicator for the actual waiting time. The use of the interval as an elevator group performance indicator is fundamentally flawed for elevator groups with destination control. Simulation based design: Traffic flows, the building and elevator groups are modeled within one integrated simulation environment. So, it is evident how complex it is to take care of traffic flow, the building and the elevator group, and therefore simulation is required. Complex or non-compliant, the individual flows, that is interfloor traffic flows, bidirectional traffic patterns, simultaneous goods flow, etc., and these are compelling needs for which simulations are important. So, what goes into simulation is input requests are made, database are generated and stored, and results are provided. It is an iterative process, and over the period we get better results. Waiting and destination times are the key determining factors in simulation based design. So, summary from simulation is iterative and time intensive process. The main features of the elevator core configuration to be set as early as possible in the design process. Thorough understanding of elevator technology and control system and simulation methods are essential. Correct assessment of the effect of human behavior as well as user experience, access system and access control. The difference between capacity studies for low rise and high rise construction are immense. A wide variety of elevator configuration is possible for high rise construction than low rise. Minor considerations can suddenly become far more influential, and we need to strike a right balance. Tight margins right the first time. Various control systems are available, and so we need to take into account all the possibilities. There are various challenges in high rise building design, and here are listed some of them which are very specific. Optimizing traffic performance in high rise. Method 1. High rise building, that is greater than 150 to 200 meter high, are split up in separate stack towers or zones to minimize continuous shaft over the tower's total height. To reach the sky lobby of the higher zone, a shuttle elevator are required. So, in this image you can see there is a central zone and all the elevators are from the base to the topmost floor. In here, in this image you can see that they are broken down into two different zones and there are shuttle elevators in between. Method 2. Elevators in local tower zones are split up in group serving local low rise and high rise floors. Low rise and high rise elevators in the same zone serve the same home floor or ground floor or sky lobby. You may notice here that there is a shuttle service between this zone and this zone, whereas here what has happened is low rise, there is a service separate and there is a high rise. Similarly, there is a shuttle service from here to top, low rise and high rise intermediate floors. It is better now. So, low rise, there are floors in between, it can be accessed, and high rise are here, or there is shuttle service from here to here, low rise and then high rise. So, you can notice clearly how the elevators are stacked together. Now, you can principally bring down the high rise or low rise depending on the design criteria. Method 3. Destination control reduces the number of destinations per car and thus the number of stops per cycle. This decreases the average travel height and the cycle time. The real challenge lies in stacking uniform codes for different zones on top of each other by integrating elevator pits and machine rooms in technical layers. So, as you can notice here, each elevator has varying stops and this elevator has a certain stops, whereas this has some other stops, and so on. In this case, you can notice that elevators are for a specific zone, lower zone, middle zone, and the upper zone. This is one approach. And then these are floors, sky lobby shuttle, and then further up there is a lobby here, and so on. So, this is a typical image that graphically indicates the elevator system. Take a glance at this image for a few seconds. You may notice that the image indicates the local elevators and direct express elevators. The lower zone is retail zone, then you have the office zones, zone 2, 3, 4 and 5, 6. Zone 7 is hotel, zone 8 is hotel, boutique and office, zone 9 is observation, cultural facilities, and you can notice here that there are changeovers and there are intermediate travels. So, there are local elevators and there are shuttle service to the various intermediate zones. There are additional optimizing possibilities, for example, double deck elevators and twin elevators, which we will see in the subsequent session. Let us now summarize what we have seen so far. We have introduced what it means to be a tall building, what is the importance of elevators in tall building, what are the ways of designing tall buildings, what are the criteria, where do we place the elevator system, how do we design them, what are the components that go into it, what are the challenges with it, and how do we solve them, how do we make calculations or simulations. To summarize this session, we introduced what tall buildings are and how do we define them, factors and the design criteria for elevators that are designed for tall buildings, common mistakes that are committed in design considerations, what kind of calculations are done and when do we go for simulation based design, how it is done, the challenges with them, and so on. Optimizing traffic performance, the various methods involved in them. Thank you.